Well, hi, everybody. Today I'm speaking with Dan Newton, a 20-year veteran in the health and wellness industry with a background in exercise science. Dan is one of the original founders of My First Gym, a health and fitness gym for children. He's competing in the Asia Pacific Cairns Ironman competition, and we're here to talk about his physical and mental fitness preparation for this competition. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Emily. How are you?
Yeah, really good, really good. Can you firstly just tell us a little bit about the competition that you're competing on the June the 6th?
Sure. Yep, 3 weeks away. The competition on the 6th of June is a full distance Ironman Triathlon, which is made up of a 3.8 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre ride and a 42 kilometre run, marathon. So it's the full-length Ironman Triathlon done over 1 day. Athletes complete the event in 8 hours to 16 hours, depending on where you are in your level, physical and mental. But it's definitely seen as one of the most grueling endurance events, programs in the world.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so can you tell us, just describe kind of a typical training day for you? What does it entail?
Yeah, well, it depends on where you are in your preparation for the event. The preparation can start from 12 months out. Most people who are trained start about 6 months out. So when you're at the peak of your training, you're up to 25, 30 hours a week, which would look like a 4 hour to 7 hour training day.
Wow.
But most days I'll be up at 4:30, completing a discipline. Maybe it's a swim or a run. Most things will be in a 2 to 3 hour block. And often you'll return in the afternoon for another go. So weekends are your long days. So you say goodbye to your kids and families at 5 o'clock if they're up, and you come home after lunch and talk about how you went. So it's big days.
Oh, wow, and have a nap, I expect.
Well, your body's going all sorts of speeds and eating all sorts of things. So sometimes sleeping isn't what you want to do, but eventually it does come back to hit you during the week sometime.
Yeah, right. Okay. Now, the authors of Developing Mental Toughness have identified 5 key attributes that affect performance. They include your abilities, your approach, your reward, your colleagues, and your state of mind. So considering that they define the idea of approach within this list as your motivation and your interests, what was the decisive moment that started this journey for you, and how does this align to your core personal values?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for anyone who does this event and completes it at their potential, the most common thing that people say is, what are your reasons for doing it? And I think those people that are bought into their why or their purpose, both in this event and in life, often are the ones that are passionately getting it done and feel really good about it at the end. So for me, when I turned 40 years old, which was at the end of last year, it was a moment of reality of, I don't really want to get old. So I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't, both physically and mentally, and everything else that goes with being an Ironman. So it happened to be my last event in Ironman Triathlon was 30 years old. So I said, I'm going to look at my 30-year-old self in the eyes and say, I'm going to beat you. So that was my goal, and I aim to do so.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So there's no secret that the concept of mental toughness in sport has been scientifically, rigorously researched. And the researchers have identified there's 12 attributes of mentally tough athletes that indicate why they're better than their opponents in remaining, I guess, determined and focused and confident and in control when they're under pressure. So of the attributes of a mentally tough competitor, defined by these researchers as having an unshakable self-belief in their own ability and to achieve their competition goal, they can regain psychological control following unexpected, uncontrollable events, and then not being, I guess, adversely affected by others by their good or bad performance. What systems have you had in place to ensure that you maintain a healthy self-belief?
What systems have I had in place?
Yeah.
I think the main system for me was coming in with solid foundations. So if you consider that you're building a machine through the process of training for Ironman, and your machine is how you deal with things physically, mentally, socially when you're in an environment of training. So for me, my foundations needed to be really strong. So technically I had raced before, so I knew what I needed to do. But generally speaking, I'm good with pain. So pain coming in the form of committing to long endurance training, pain coming in the form of getting up early, hurting yourself, being able to withstand physical pain, physiological pain. And I think there's a certain sympathetic approach to knowing what you could need to go through. So I wanted to look at my experience as a 30-year-old versus a 40-year-old and say, well, what does it mean to be successful? It's not just the winning the race or the beating the time, it's being smarter. So for me, to be a smart athlete and be a wise athlete, just like in life, it's how do you approach things using your strengths and understanding what are those key things that are going to keep you accountable as an individual, but also successful, safe through the process. So the first thing was a benchmarking. So I actually happened to decide 6 months before the event that I wanted to do it. So I said at month intervals, I need to know what are my benchmarks for improvement. So at each month, there was very clear defined outcomes around what does my swim look like, what does my ride look like, what does my run look like. But more importantly, I was injured. So right at the start, I couldn't run and I found it hard to walk. So one of the most important things for me when I did this was I needed to overcome significant injuries. So the benchmarking that I had around developing not just my physical self, but being able to prepare around an injury was a really important scientific process that I needed to go through to be very patient to improve that injury. So that's benchmarking. The next is having a trusted plan. So it's always important to look at a goal with a plan. But for me, it was how do I give myself the confidence that the plan was to be trusted. So that plan was built for me by a professional and was something that I was able to accept and just follow like a process. So as soon as I forgot thinking about what I needed to do the next day, I just fell in love with the daily plan, and that was my focus. The final piece or system for me was having somebody that coached me. So when you move through Ironman training and preparation, it's a lot of ups and downs, both with a bit of self-belief, a bit of doubt, a bit of reassurance needed every now and then, because it is taking you to the edge. So having a coach that understands you as an athlete, you as an individual, you can add, dialogue and feedback around your performance to give you the feeling like you're not alone, and that can push you into certain things to either stretch you to go further or pull you back if you need to stop a little bit. So those are those systems that I feel that have helped me get to hopefully the start line in a safe, prepared place.
Yeah, and I love that you've got that focus on, recovery, as well as the sort of the planning and the consistent coaching as well. That realization that needs to be part of the overall training, recovery for your muscles, as well as your mind. I like that. Excellent. Yeah. And then, so what strategies do you have in place that enable you to maintain psychological control throughout your build up to this event?
Yes, psychological control can change based on, your moods, your environment, how you're feeling. So I think having consistency around that is really important. Again, this is knowing yourself. For me, feedback is critical. So feedback around, am I improving? And or if I've had a bad day, some of the tips and tricks that can go along with, or, maybe just do this tomorrow, but you're able to achieve this, and things that you weren't aware of. So that feedback loop, which brings me back to the coach scenario, was a huge psychological kind of pillar for me to have that resource to work with. Yeah. Another really important piece to this, we call that a pillar as well, is having colleagues who are in the event with you. So that I've got a few friends in Brisbane that are doing it. And that sort of consistency around community, knowing that other people are doing similar things to you, you can reach in and ask how they're going, you can compare notes along the way. That community aspect to a very lonely sport sometimes is essential to feeling like you're not alone, and you can also share best practice and knock each other on the shoulder every now and then and say you're doing great. So they're really important things that make you feel like it's willing to keep going when it's hard.
Excellent. And I guess, that aspect of the companion and colleagues you mentioned there, what are the keys to avoiding being adversely affected by the distraction of other people's performance then?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think when you're new at this type of thing, it's easy to get taken away by how others are doing and how you should be doing versus their performance. But it probably comes back to my original point around your purpose and the reason why you're doing it. This is something that sort of, it can be seen as superhuman or, ultra, out of what most people would consider as comfortable. So if you are getting onto the start line with a very strong awareness of why you're doing something and how important and compelling that reason is to you, you end up reflecting on that point more often than other people's journeys. So if you wake up every morning with a real desire to want to prove something to yourself or achieve that goal for yourself, then it ends up being a journey for yourself and with yourself, which you're able to feel comfortable with. And it becomes less about somebody else's performance and more about how aligned you are to your goal and your journey to achieve it.
Excellent.
So I think as long as people, and that's sharing with other people as well. If other people know why you're doing it, even your colleagues, they're able to rally you and cheer you in. And that's when it becomes something that you can be proud of and share with others as well. So it's not just solo.
Yeah, excellent. So you're getting that support and comparing, I guess, your own performance rather than to other people's.
Yeah, but it's also nice to add some competitive flair to it as you start to become successful, or you're doing well. It's always nice to know where you sit with other people.
Yeah.
Balance it.
Cool. All right. So with the benefit of, I guess, 30 years of research into mental toughness, there has been identified 4 constructs that can reliably measure someone's mental toughness, those being control, commitment, challenge, and confidence. So considering these 4 constructs, what specific strategy have you found most beneficial in your preparation for the competition?
Yeah, great. I think for me, they're all relevant, but the most important thing is commitment. So there's 2 prongs to commitment. There's a moment that you get, which is an overwhelming feeling that you are going to do something extraordinary by signing up. The signing up process is like throwing an anchor down. That's your commitment. So once you throw that anchor down, that's a pretty strong reinforcement of where you're going. And if that's strong enough and you're confident enough with that, that'll keep you there and that anchor will stay down. But a more relevant commitment to me that defines success is commitment around the daily process. So every day you'll probably wake up feeling like you don't want to be up. But the process is that to complete every day like it was a race or it is a race. And so you win the event every day. And every day, if you can successfully complete it, then the race day is just another version of your daily plan. And that should be executed in accordance to the greater plan, which hopefully is reaching your goal.
Yeah, excellent. I love that you're kind of breaking it down and making this a daily commitment, not just say, I'm committed on that day to attend this race. You've sort of had that realization that it has to be a daily activity and a daily commitment. That's fantastic. That's something that we really advocate here at Get Mentally Fit. So what regular habits have you adopted to support your mental health and mental fitness during the lead up to this competition?
Yeah, look, it has to be sleep, number one. The habit of sleep has always been a good habit for me. So it hasn't been something that was set into stone that always worked well. So you will not be successful if you don't sleep. So having the right measures around triggers that don't allow you to sleep, so getting rid of your phone and having the right timing around sleep and nutrition and so on, so that's super important. Nutrition, having a good quality diet is a habit that isn't just a nice to, it's a must have, because that will allow you to repair and rebuild and gain the strength and endurance you need. I think the other habit is rituals. So it's so important that you have a support group around you. Anyone who's married or soon to be married or has kids, the most important thing is that they're on the journey with you. So creating rituals and experiences where they feel they're a part of it with you is something that keeps the program moving and doesn't allow stalling or things that you can lose that aren't worth losing. So having a ritual for me was every time I came back, there was a protein shake ready for me. There'd be a hug and a kiss and a couple of high fives, and that was my ritual of success, which my family felt a part of, and it is something that you look back on and go, that's the real stuff. When you can.
Excellent. So that's really kind of integrating the family into the activity and what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. I love it.
Yeah, I think so. It might not work for everyone, but I think it's really important for me.
Yeah, great. Okay, so you mentioned sleep and you're getting up at 4:30. How do you give us your day? What do you do?
Well, I wish I was getting up at 4:30, 4 o'clock more so.
Four. Okay.
That would be a sleep in. But it's coming down to what does your day look like outside of training, because you cannot, unless you're a professional, which some of us would love that, but unfortunately professional means you need to race to win, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with that too. But being a company founder and someone who wants to balance with lifestyle and so on, then getting up early is essential. So getting up, you have a really important ritual that you go through, and a lot of it's not around training. It's getting your body and your mind in a place where you're calm and you're willing to accept the next couple of hours of pretty intense training. So for me, it's getting up in silence, having a coffee, reading the news and just feeling like I can let my mind wander. And that is really the cushion to allow you to feel like you can get into your next phase of training and get on with it. And I think that's the type of stuff that when you wake up in the morning, you actually look forward to it, believe it or not, at 4 o'clock. So that's important.
Yeah, excellent. Okay. I'm just thinking about celebrations here as you're talking with BJ Fogg and his chapter around emotions create habits. And he's exploring this aspect of the power of celebrations. And you mentioned that ritual with your family. That's kind of almost a celebration. You come home and you've completed your training for the day. And it can be that real positive transition for change. And he highlights that our brains really want to feel good. And adding in like small celebrations gives people some kind of pattern around their life when they're forming new habits. So what other kind of little celebrations have you practiced daily that have supported your training journey along to this event?
I think the celebrations come in the form of, there's the obvious ones of just having close friendships and family that you can talk to about your successes or failures. But the celebrations for me that are really almost like a dopamine hit, where you get home from your experience, your training, you sit down with your phone, and there's all sorts of apps that you can have where you're comparing training to other people. So those celebrations are, I hit my goal, I beat your goal, I achieved a certain athlete of the month, or there's all sorts of games you can play. Those types of things there are really the micro celebrations that give you the feeling like it's a bit of fun along the journey, which can be quite strenuous and serious. So it's quite good.
Excellent. So adding in that aspect of fun is great. So my last question, training anywhere from sort of 3 to 7 hours a day on your own, do you ever suffer boredom?
Great question. You'd think so. And most people, if you haven't got the right purpose or you're not really aligned to the passion of why you're doing it, you can probably get bored with it. Or you're not training as intensely as maybe you need to. Boredom might come into the reference. But for me, boredom isn't really an issue. And I think one of the main reasons for that is data is critical. So if you're preparing for something like this, you need a certain amount of data to help you understand where you are from the bigger picture plan point of view, but also for that session. So every session has key things you're achieving: heart rate, pace, power, an outcome that you're trying to either maintain, keep, beat, or improve on. And that's something which is by the minute, which you're trying to keep accordance to. So that's the first. For me, I'm a big adventurer, so I really enjoy getting out into new environments. So I'll always schedule workouts that have a defined plan in new places. So I'll ride into the hinterland, or swim out into the ocean, or run up into a sand dune, or all sorts of things that every day, if I can, I'll change. And that's all part of the novelty of outdoor
So you're getting
training.
a lot of visual stimulation if you're mixing that up a lot.
Yeah, and I think in Noosa, where I live particularly, there's a lot of athletes as well. So you're always running into people or literally running after people. And sometimes that can be fun to egg each other on or make the experience a little bit more like a community. Yeah, and I think the other big one is just knowing there's a big goal at play here, and every single minute, as far as I look at the sport, every minute's an opportunity to pick up an improvement or some type of advantage. So if you look at it like that, then you take each minute seriously when you're out there. So it doesn't really allow for a lot of boredom.
Excellent. Okay, interesting. All right, well, thank you so much, Dan, for giving us a little bit of insight into your training, your physical training, and also your mental fitness training, and how you're sort of sustaining yourself throughout all of this. It's been really intriguing to hear everything about, you know, your recovery, your planning, the coaching, and a lot of the reflection that you do in this preparation. So thank you so much for your time today. We at Get Mentally Fit will be egging you on the 6th of June, and I'm sure I'm hoping that you'll give us your results the next day.
Well, for sure, you'll see them online if you want to download it.
Yeah, definitely. Give us the do you know what the web address is where we can go in and have a look?
Yeah, it's ironmancairns.com.au. There's actually a tracker that you can follow, which you can download, and you'll see a little blob running along the screen, which you can follow live, which is pretty fun if anyone's into that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll definitely do that.
All right. Very good.
Thanks very much, Dan.
Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.